Yep.
I love concerts. It's so cool.
Yep, same. That is like old school, going back to the dance hall that I used to hang out in when I was growing up.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
It smells the same too.
Have you been to Sogo Underground for anything?
Yes.
It smells even worse.
Sticky. I mean, you walk it like. Yes. I have been for a couple of things. Couple of concerts. Yeah.
So yeah. We had such good reaction from last.
Are you filming?
Yeah.
She really is already. I mean,
I know, sometimes I can't tell. I wish there was a
red.
Yeah, there is on my end, but.
Well, that's helpful. Go. Sorry. I was like.
I was hoping that when I just start, you normally, as you do, come in and then just talk. And I just have to get you going, and then you go.
We did have a good response.
Thank you.
Actually, last time was the best response we've ever had to Generally. And we loved the responses a lot. We smiled and giggled at a few. Some people said their best technology was the microwave, all the way to, I would say we had some, like the cloud. There was some really, really, really interesting, and we did a ton of strength spotting in regards to your responses. So I want to give out a shout out to Jay Wright, who his song choice happens to be a song that I run to. It's called Possum Kingdom. If you have not heard it, you should look it up. And I couldn't believe I knew the song that he mentioned. Beth, who mentioned Whitney Houston. Today I mentioned Jackson Browne to Tess, because I just got tickets to Jackson Browne at Pinewood Bowl. No. Do you know who Jackson Browne is?
No. Okay, I do have to say I loved Beth's technology example, though, of being able to stream music and being able to play music whenever you want to. And to me, it made me think then back to generational differences, because that has always been something I've been able to do, essentially.
Right.
I mean, when I started getting into adolescence and junior high, like, iTunes was out and I could play music whenever I wanted to. Granted, I would always ask, you had to pay to stream music until I found LimeWire, and then illegally streamed it for a while, as all junior hires did, middle schoolers did when I was in middle school. But I would, you'd play like the 30-second or 15-second clip on iTunes, and now like I've had Spotify Premium for so many years, 5 or 6 years, that it's just now a second nature, and I don't forget that there was a time where you couldn't just play whatever you wanted to play.
Yes.
And so the fact that that was her technology, greatest technology joy, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. I do that all the time. I stream music all day long, or podcasts. And so it's just something I didn't even think about as technology, because it's now so ingrained in my life that I don't think of it as this added blessing, but it's something that is just naturally there. So it made me stop to think.
Yes.
I am so grateful for that.
Which I think would be a great conversation to have with your mentee.
Yes.
Because the things that are completely part of your mentee's life might be brand new technology to you. I love the fact that Beth used an 80s song title reference, but yet talked about streaming music. I thought that was a great blend. And then Dan also mentioned the cloud, about having music wherever and whenever he wants to. That's pretty amazing. A lot of you talked about future things that maybe you would ponder or think about getting. Bob mentioned Alexa. I have also pondered Alexa and imagined myself like this. Alexa, can you start my car for me? And things that would not be possible. But now I got a different vehicle, and I am learning, wow, is technology amazing.
Awesome. Okay, did I show you the Alexa Silver YouTube video?
No.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's a little bit negative towards older people, and so I don't want it to seem like I am that way. But it is
That's
so
okay.
funny.
You can take the heat now. Make a Tanya
I
Harding
can take
comment.
the heat.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Go ahead.
No, but
Thank you
but
for everyone.
It was this SNL sketch
Oh, I
based
love
based on Alexa. I've shown it to so many people because I have an Amazon Echo. I talk to Alexa all the time, and she's just like, she doesn't get what I say half the time. So that's the frustrating part for me. I'm like, I want you to play this playlist on Spotify, and I'll name it, and I'll say on shuffle, and like 50% of the time she gets it, and then sometimes she finds some other playlist to play. And anyway, but there's this SNL sketch about the Amazon Echo Alexa Silver, and it's like for elderly people, especially those that
Like
are hard
me?
of hearing. No,
Oh.
way like retired, way like. Yes, anyway, so it's like Alexa responds to any name remotely like Alexa. So you hear these older people like, Odessa!
Allegra!
Odessa! Allegra! and then it says, there's even like, it gives all these examples of like, well, you turn the heat up, and Alexa goes, it's already 100 degrees. And then the old lady's like, what? Where? What are you trying to kill me? And then there's my favorite part though is that they say there's like an feature for your long rambling stories. And so you see this
Oh,
guy
goodness.
and he's talking and giving this example,
Oh,
and every once in a
goodness.
while Alexa goes, like just here. And then at the end you
That
can
would
get
be
it for
effective.
like 5 payments of $19.99 cash or money order to Amazon.com. It's just such a great sketch. I was like,
Well,
oh
we
my
had a
God.
long conversation about it actually at Christmas because
Mm-hmm.
Mike and Abby have it and Mike's parents have it, and everybody was telling me about it, and I just had this vision of me trying to use it, and my kids actually created that vision for me.
Yeah.
They're like, Mom, no, no. So I love that Bob is thinking about it because
Yeah.
Bob, you and I are on the same level there. Janae had a great recommendation, and she said that we talk about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Whether it's products, whether it's places, and wouldn't it be great if there was an actual like follow-up list of the things that we talk about? So I created a Pinterest board called Worth Mentioning, and so the things that we talk about here, I'm going to go back and look at our old Jen and Millie's and try to link those, but like Normal Coffee from Burwell, which I could not think of the name, and by the way, I have my order coming today. Normal Coffee out of Burwell is now pinned on my Worth Mentioning board, so if there's something that you hear that we're talking about, like we'll have to pin the Wheelers like place,
The what?
where you get your farm stuff and your desk.
Oh, Fleet Farm.
Fleet Farm. We'll have to pin Fleet Farm on there. It's worth mentioning. So Wheelers was the name of our, like,
Your farm goods store.
our farm goods
or
store.
Schwann's.
Right. So we'll have to pin Fleet Farm on there. So the things that we mentioned, Janae, that was such a good idea. I now have a Pinterest board, which I'll send you guys the link, called Worth Mentioning. And so if there's something that we talk about that we like or we love, like your mug, we'll pin that so people can find it easier. And then I appreciate Jen letting us know about ideas she sent us information about a conference that talks about the difference between generations.
No way.
Yeah, Jen from Metro Catholic Jen.
Oh, yes.
I
It's
thought-
about parenting.
Yes.
A different
And
generation.
I
than
thought,
we are.
I mean, I love that people are recognizing that's actually what we are talking about is different generations here. And that was such a great idea for us. Sorry that we couldn't be there, but I think if there are places where we could plug in some additional learning for even mentors to know that'd be great. And then I wanted to let all the Burwell folks know that my coffee was ordered.
Yeah.
Man, am I excited about that. It is so good. So good. Like I had to go back to Dunkin' Donuts coffee, which I love, but I was like, this is not the same. So it's normal. I can't believe I couldn't think of that name. I was like, it's some kind of weird name. Yeah, it's
Normal.
Normal coffee.
That's so good.
So there are our shout outs. What a great group of responses we got last time. And we did Futurecast a little bit, which I thought was good. Today we're going to talk about some changes that we've made, some lifestyle changes that we've made, and how our strengths contribute. So I'm going to challenge you guys today. We'll do some strength spotting, but if you notice strengths that you hear from us in the way we talk about these adventures that we've been on, I'd love to hear what strengths they hear or strengths combinations that they might notice.
Definitely. So I wanted to give a little bit, we're going to be talking about these changes that we've each made personally. They actually aren't New Year's resolutions, but I feel like we're in that place where I wanted to talk because I think a lot of people maybe watching have made New Year's resolutions or think about the fact that a new year is beginning. There's a new place for new rhythms. So I was listening to a podcast about discipline, not the strength of discipline. It was actually a church podcast that I was listening to, but it was about the spiritual act of having good discipline in your spiritual life. But the pastor was giving all these stats that I kept just being blown away by. And he started out by saying that less than 1% of the population is naturally extraordinarily gifted in anything. You know, you think of geniuses, you think of Mozart, you think of sitting on the piano, just being able to play for me, or less than 1%, which we know, we idolize those people, we tend to talk a lot about them, learn about their lives, study them, but so then for the rest of the 99+% of people that live in the world, which is, I think all of us, I haven't met any geniuses myself, but so I don't know unless, prove me wrong. But those of us in that place, we need to work. We need to work hard. We need to be disciplined. We need to have good structure to what we're doing. And I love that we're talking about this because there is a strength of discipline. It happens to be my very last one. And people are often surprised when they hear that because they think, I have a full-time job and I do a lot of work with the church and I'm also in school, that how can you seem like such a disciplined person, but you don't have that strength. So we're going to talk a lot about what strengths we have used to help us be disciplined in these lifestyle changes we've made. A couple of the other very interesting things I wanted to share, though, about resolutions and New Year's resolutions is that about 40% of the American population makes a New Year's resolution every year. So when you think about the American population, that means there's about 130 million people that make New Year's resolutions every single year, which I thought was pretty crazy. It was less of a percent than I thought, but that's still a ton of people when you think about it. It's more people than watch the Super Bowl, is what I found out. 33% of people watch the Super Bowl. 40% of the Americans make New Year's resolutions. And so, but actually the top 5 resolutions that people make, I jotted these down, were to lose weight, to exercise more, to eat healthy, to get a better job, and actually be closer to God was in that top 5 list, which I thought was interesting. Go to church more and do more spiritual exercises, things like that. And then the most interesting thing I found was that January 12th, which now we are over a month past, is National Quitters Day. Because New Year's resolutions that start January 1, by January 12th, 98% of people have left their New Year's resolution behind. They either broke it, they have morphed it into something it totally wasn't, but they have quit. 98% of people. I could not believe that.
By January 12th.
January 12th.
So that's guessing 13 days if you make it on December 31st-ish. So not even 2 weeks.
Not even 2 weeks.
That's an interesting stat on the 2 weeks piece.
Yeah.
And you can see that at the gym. If you are a regular gym person like I am, it is bonkers between December 28th and actually it's about, I would say, mid to late January, but come February, it's crickets again at where I go to the gym. And it's frustrating. Sometimes when you're coming in early and you're used to being able to get on a treadmill and you go in on January 3rd and every treadmill and every elliptical is taken and you're like, where do all these people come from? Where are these people?
I don't know what works.
And the thing that I have found interesting, and I should look at the stats on this, I did ask about it once, is how many members we have. I belong to a small gym in Gretna. And at any given time, there are typically not more than 10 people in there. That would be a lot of people. In early morning, they have a class, so there might be a little bit more. But, I mean, there are times where I go and I'm the only one in there, which I love. When I asked about our membership total, it is in the hundreds, the large hundreds. And I'm like, where are they?
Where are all these people?
And then my thought was, why would you have a membership if you don't go? But then when you start to think about that, 13 days, not even 2 weeks of a resolution. The other thing I thought about, not just resolutions, goals. People tend to set goals around that time of the year. I started the word of the year for myself because I was so into having resolutions, and it became overwhelming sometimes, but I think everybody has around that time of year,
Something they do.
something what they want to do to better themselves as a person. So whether that's a word of the year or goals or resolutions, but yeah, you do notice it at the gym.
Yeah.
January 12th. So 2
January
weeks
12th.
is really interesting. And what I'd like to do is link that podcast.
Yeah, I can do
Yep,
that.
we'll do that. Those are interesting stats. I am on day 19, more than 2 weeks, of a 21-day sugar detox, which it says, I mean, I'm going to show you my book because my book is, oh, this is easy to strength spot. I need a book. I love the book. I like to follow the book. I like to read ahead. I like to think about it. What this says is sugar detox is not true. It was everything. It wasn't just sugar. Because when I started, I was like, or when I learned about it, I thought, oh, I can cut out my peanut butter cups every night, just like a little one of them. I can cut those out, or I can cut out the donut or whatever else. It was not just sugar. And sugar is everywhere. So I have been extraordinarily disciplined, which is very rare for me. I've never done anything like this before, to be so regimented. Very, very, very few carbs. Very little gluten, mostly healthy protein, and lots of veggies. The only fruit I can have is a Granny Smith apple or a green tipped banana. Only one serving a day, so one or the other, not both. And I have learned a ton about myself in this process. I've had some very dramatic things happen, and I wrote at day 7 on my personal blog about it, the things that I was noticing, day 14, and then I'm going to wrap up on Monday with a review of the whole thing and kind of what I learned. First of all, I've learned that I sleep better. I've learned that I run faster, which is amazing. I didn't intend to. Like I didn't I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose this amount of weight or I'm going to do this. I just wanted to try it. And the fact that my run time is now under 10-minute mile is extraordinary because I wish I would have known that when I was actually training for the half marathon. I've never been under a 10-minute mile. And I like to run slow, but I just feel better. I have more energy. Also, it's expensive. It's expensive to eat right, and it has given me so much to think about when it comes to choices and how challenging that can be for families to feed your family in a healthy way when it's so easy to eat crap food and it's so much cheaper. I really was dedicated to trying to be home more, not to travel as much, but I did have one awesome strength day in Sutherland. And Teresa could tell you that I packed a cooler full of all the things that I could eat. Because a lot of times, I mean, I think when we're feeding a group of mentors, what's easy, what's inexpensive, what's quick. And it's not chicken breasts and cut up pieces of vegetables. So I sat in the car, had my lunch. When the staff had an awesome Fat Tuesday celebration, I had to rest my woo. It's very hard for me not to be social. And I sat at my desk because I knew if I was going to be around the brownies, just smelling the brownies, I wanted the brownies. I couldn't even have the kale salad because it had poppy seed dressing. But just to understand what I needed to do this, my achiever, which is number 6 for me, was like in high gear. But I was very intentional about doing this successfully. And so I paired it with my woo to say to people, I'm doing this. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Because I know I need accountability. I don't know where discipline is for me. Is it low? Low?
I think it's mid to low.
I know that I have to use my strengths to be very intentional about things. So I specifically told my coworkers, I specifically told my family and some of my friends, and I reached out. I mean, I sent a couple group texts to some of my my group of girls, like, I'm losing my mind, I can't do this, because I needed support and I needed accountability. And so that part of it, the woo achiever said, use these in order to attain the goal. I don't really think I've ever paired woo achiever together.
Yeah.
Or thought about it, and I thought I was really intentional about it. But also, I have not been social for 21 days.
Yeah.
And that has pained me. I love happy hour. I love everything about happy hour. That is like the best time of day. Like when I die and you have my funeral, all of you, I want it to be a happy hour theme.
Oh, it will be.
When
We
I got
know.
married, we had a happy hour theme. I mean, I love that time of day. I love dusk. I love the social energy and vibe when people relax and laugh. And I also love appetizers a lot. And good happy hour pricing on red wine. So I knew 4 to 7 was going to be my most difficult time. So I have been very cognizant about staying close to home. And it's been challenging at times. LaCroix water does not taste like wine. However, what I found is that I got myself into like the prep of the food. Really cognizant of colors, really cognizant of smells, and I've used garlic in almost every fresh herbs in almost everything. So my Woo Achiever blend, I have been able to witness. The other thing that probably has been remarkable for me is my mental clarity. I do not forget where I park as often. I want to say as often. I feel really, really, really clear-headed in decision making. I have less self-doubt. I have less kind of struggle between should I do this or should I do this. I just feel an energy both mentally and physically. And then I've done some hard things. During this time, I've had some difficult conversations and things that I haven't ever been brave enough to do before have suddenly happened. Now, I'm not going to give it all to this, but I am going to say to be able to see myself, have a goal, use my strengths to attain it, that has helped me get here. Now, what I do also want to say, I want to strength spot myself with the input. I have kept a journal of everything that I've eaten because when you come off of this sugar detox, you also add foods in slowly so you can see how your body reacts to them. I've always struggled with acne. My skin has been very, very clear during this time. I want to notice that. I want to see what kinds of things make me feel fuller or maybe icky. I have a terrible time with heartburn. Have not had any heartburn during this. So I want, as I add foods back, to be able to notice. So I'm going to self-spot input for sure.
That's good.
The communication Woo and Achiever blend in talking about this goal. And my apologies to everybody who I've talked about this endlessly to, but it was intentional so that I could hopefully achieve it.
So good. I also want to strength spot your connectedness. Because
Really?
I just have to because you don't spot it
I
ever
know.
in your life.
I know.
But the fact that you're able to draw those connections and say, I have mental clarity. And I can tell when I put food into my body, this is the differing results.
Yes.
And that is so connectedness, something that people might not draw the conclusions about, that this causes this, or this was how it used to be, this is how it is now, and here is the extrapolating circumstance. I almost think of, like, statistically speaking, it's a spiralist relationship. Like, this is happening and this is happening, and sometimes we can draw conclusions that, oh, well, since I'm doing a lot of food prep, I probably am feeling better. Well, actually, it's this, what I'm putting in my body, this spiralist relationship of this other factor, this other variable that is
That is
affecting
so
what you're
good.
doing.
I don't think about I don't think about my connectedness very often, but I never think about it with logic.
Oh, yeah.
It's purely soul.
Especially with your blended with your strategic, it's this idea almost to mentally map, like mentally put things together that you wouldn't have thought about beforehand. It's my connectedness and strategic blend that I have too.
That's awesome. Now, I would love for you to share your journey because
Yes.
it's been an awesome one. So
It has been. So I have struggled with health problems since I was born. From a very, very young age, I've always had health issues. Specifically, I've had chronic migraines and headaches since I was a very, very young kid. Like I remember as early as second grade, my teacher thinking that I had issues with my eyesight because I would have a headache every day at school. So they brought me and got glasses for me, and turns out I have 20/20 vision. These are a technology advancement. They're blue light glasses, so they actually don't have prescription, but they filter out the negative blue light.
and they look really good.
But just even like that was one of the earliest ways that I tried to prevent my headaches, but I've had headaches and migraines since a very young age, and it's not, when you think about migraines, if you haven't been around someone that has them, it's so much more than just a headache. I mean, I vomit very regularly, I get double vision or go blind, I have such negative side effects from like someone walking by, so the floor vibrates, so then I feel that and can get nauseous. Like simple things like that.
It's
like
debilitating.
Like it is. I'm just hypersensitive to pretty much everything. And then so I've lived in a lot of like fear and anxiety a lot of my life because I just am worried about, oh, well, if that light is too bright, will that trigger a headache? Or, you know, if I run too hard when I'm exercising, or if I don't drink enough water, then I chug a half gallon of water. Just everything like that revolves around, will this negatively affect my health? So I started seeing a new doctor, and she did a bunch of blood work and found a lot of allergies I didn't know I had. And I have had allergy testing done many times in my life, and so I think, I don't know what it is about my body that this came up this time, but I've previously been told I was allergic to the protein in milk, not lactose intolerant, but essentially cutting out dairy in my diet. I have previously cut out all processed sugar. I've done Whole30 several times to reintroduce to see if I had food triggers. I've cut out alcohol, pretty much everything, caffeine, and I have cut out gluten before. But this time the blood test came back that I was allergic to wheat, pretty heavily allergic. So, and then also allergic to a lot of nuts and seeds, so peanuts and hazelnuts and almonds and sesame seeds and all sorts of things. So my doctor was like, you probably need to cut those things out. And so the first thing I did was, oh crap, I can't, I'm a big, and I'll say this because you said red wine, I'm a big craft beer fan, like really big craft beer fan. Love a really dark porter or stout. And so you were with me the day I got this news. We drove out to Scottsbluff.
Yes.
And we were driving out to Scottsbluff for our week there, and I had got that news that morning, and we started driving that afternoon. So I'm processing all the things I can't have, and I'm like, oh, at least it isn't dairy, because I love cheese. I love really good cheeses. And so, because I'm a big happy hour fan too.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh, I can't have bread with my cheese. That's okay. I have to find a good cracker substitute. Like, they make good gluten-free bread now. I can use alternative flours, things like that I'm processing. And then it hits me about 4 hours into the drive that I can't have beer anymore. And I have gotten really into local breweries, and I have made some awesome relationships with local brewers, and I have a good friend who brews beer out of his garage, and it's so good. And so I just was like, not only will I have to cut this out, but a lot of the relationships that I built will be negatively affected by it, you know. So I'm processing all of this. So the first thing, and then my mind goes to the fact that I have all of this awesome craft beer in my fridge. And so the day after we got back, I had a big party with all my friends, and it was my breaking up with beer party.
Which I think is awesome.
And so I had all my friends over, and we drank the beer that was in my fridge. I ordered like pizza, and I had garlic bread, and I made Kraft mac and cheese, like all of the glutinous things that I could think of that I couldn't have anymore. So we had this big party. It was really like healing almost to walk into that and say, okay, everyone knows I have to make this lifestyle change. It's that relational accountability.
Yes.
Now, that wasn't my woo that was using that. It was my individualization, my relator, my connectedness, things like that I needed that personal accountability with relationships. Because so much of my life, especially as a young adult, it's you go out and you go out for drinks or you go out for coffee, and so naturally you just have a pastry when you do that, or you get appetizers when you are out. So anyway, so it's just was kind of a little bit of a culture shock for me, and so I really approached it now reflecting upon that through a lot of my strengths. I reached out to my sister. She is very, very disciplined in what she eats. So I reached out to her, and I know that she eats gluten in a lot of the things that I can't, but I know that she practices really healthy discipline in terms of shopping, grocery shopping, meal planning, meal prep, all of that kind of stuff. So I said, can I like shadow you for a couple weeks? And so I brought my computer over, and we went to Pinterest. So I was using my input, it's my number 10, to gather recipes and information, and using my learner to really see how she does it, and my relationship with her. She's my relator and learner. She's like, yeah, cook here, and so we cooked together. I cooked at her house, and just really great. Reflecting back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, that's how it didn't feel overwhelming. And because I'm not a disciplined person, but it was because my natural tendency was to approach it from learner, input strategic
Right.
from a lot of my other strengths that said, how can I best do this? And how can I think of this as really a fun, positive change that will make me feel better, even though it feels very restrictive? Because I don't like to restrict myself. I like to have all my options available. With my strategic, I love my adaptability is like, what should we eat now? Let's go pick something up. But I'm having to plan ahead a lot, which is has been a pretty significant change for me. And then the other thing that I really actually wanted to ponder with you, because you also have high strategic, do you feel like there's something about strategic that is black and white in nature? Like you can filter through the options and know, because you can filter through and know what is the best option, what is the not best option, that you can sometimes see situations as black and white.
With strategic?
Yeah.
I think strategic is one that it depends on what it's blending with. So my strategic with my empathy says gray.
Oh, okay.
My strategic with my, I would say probably my input sees there's the research, there's the facts. You got it.
Yeah.
But then what I've been practicing and trying to do is have a more open mind, particularly because, I guess we're being very open today. What happened in Florida, I want to be able to understand why anybody would think that it's okay to have those kinds of guns. I want to understand, I want to understand somebody's perspective, because in my head, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is say, be more open to hearing other perspectives, because sometimes, I mean, I caught myself. There was an article by Brene Brown that came out that was actually written in 2017, and immediately I was like, oh, I love what Brene says, so I'll love this. My head went to, I know what I love, I know who I love.
Yeah.
So even before I read it, I was approaching it as I will love it.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, okay, I got to do a little bit more practice in hearing opinions that are different than mine. So I think my strategic with my input says black and white. My strategic with my empathy says gray. So I think it depends.
Sure. Maybe it does. So the reason I ask that is, as I've been talking through this, I've been meeting more and more people who have gluten allergies. And so many of them, there's one in particular, she used to work for the church that I go to, and now works kind of in a business. But I was talking with her, and she actually has the same doctor I do and found a similar diagnosis, not just in the gluten realm. But she was saying that, oh yeah, I mean, I do love beer, and so to me it's worth it to drink it. And it almost took me aback, like, I never even thought about the fact that every once in a while I might be able to eat gluten, because my brain was so like, you have an allergy, these are the things you need to cut out, so you cut them out, like cold turkey.
But I think also, strengths aside, you've been miserable for so long.
Yeah, sure.
And that you are just at the point where you are like, I will do whatever it takes.
But I never even entertained the thought that
You
I could eat. It was just like, okay, everything must be like on fire or something. Like when she said that, I was like, oh, I guess I could probably have a beer sometime and just see how it affects me. But I have been without it for, it's been over a month now. It's been, I think, 5 weeks that I've totally cut out gluten and nuts and everything that I'm allergic to. And I just have never even thought or never even craved it, which is so weird because I love that stuff so much of what it is. Not just beer, but, bread and noodles and pasta and everything. Italian food is my favorite type of food, but I've never even craved any of that. But I don't have high responsibility. It's 25 for me. I don't have high discipline. So I was wondering if it's something about my strategic and then maybe my context that says you felt so horrible.
Yes.
And your tests are all the reminders of how crappy you felt your whole life.
Yes.
So if this helps you be better, I don't know.
I also want to spot strategic with adaptability here. Because your adaptability says, I will make this change.
Yeah.
And so adaptability says, I will search out those gluten-free options.
Yeah.
So what I loved is that you're resting your adaptability to say, now I have to plan. But at the same time, you're engaging your adaptability to say,
That's good.
I gotta look and I gotta connect with people who are going to be doing this. So I think it's your adaptability that says,
Interesting.
now I've got to come up with a new plan.
Yeah.
So the other thing I really want to make sure that I spot out loud, I think what you are doing is commendable, because a lot of people will feel like crap for a long, long, long time before they will advocate for themselves for their own well-being and health. and you have done that, and to see your joy in being heard by a
Yeah.
practitioner was probably one of the best things that I've witnessed in a long time. You have to advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
And the journey that you've been on with your health, I can still hear my Aunt Meg, my godmother, saying to me, when you don't have your health, Allison, you have nothing. And, you know, to hear that when you don't know what that feels like is very difficult to actually walk in your shoes. But I've witnessed the pain that you've experienced when you've had a migraine. We've been in the car together. I mean, just how debilitating that is. So for you to say, I will advocate for myself, I will recognize triggers, and I will find solutions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's whatever strengths those are. It's awesome. It's awesome to witness. But I also really want to encourage people to advocate. I think that's one of the things that we tend to not do. Hannah, throughout your journey that you're on right now, advocate for yourself. It does not have to go like everybody else. Or even when I was expecting Sean, I really wanted to have a doula. I was all about it. And Sean's dad, which I really appreciate now later, he just said, no, I'm not comfortable with that. That doesn't feel right to me. I want to be the coach here. And in retrospect, I needed to consider all pieces to that.
Yeah.
But what I was in my head, it was like the Brene Brown says, so let's do it. The doula was the catchphrase at the time. I was like, oh, do it. So I think advocacy for yourself is so important. Also, okay, hello, context.
Yeah.
The fact that you could envision what your fridge looked like full of beer, that's context. People see context all the time as a love of history and be able to go. Context is also the card catalog. Sorry, use that old lady reference here. It's the card catalog. I know. This is what I know.
Yeah.
This is where it's at.
I can name everything that's in my fridge right now.
That is crazy. That is context. I love it. Also, you're a learner, being open to learning new things and learning from your sister. I very, very much want to spot that. And then your individualization to seek out new people. You are not lessening friendships. You're growing them in a different way. So your adaptability and individualization is what I get to see.
That's good. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Interesting how we both don't have discipline high, but we are, and sometimes I hope people understand that. When we look at our strengths and we look at what our number 34 is, or we look at what's low, it does not mean you don't have it.
Yeah.
What it means is sometimes strengths blends help us find a version of that is uniquely for us. So for me, I would say definitely my connectedness and my achiever are saying, this is what you're going to do.
Yep.
And here's why you want to do it, and let's do it in a meaningful way. So I think that helps people know that they have, the strengths blends can really mirror what a specific strength looks like. It's just a little bit more work.
Yeah.
I wish that my friend Darren could be part of this journey with me, because Darren has very high discipline, and just by nature she's good at this kind of stuff, and this has really been hard for me. And I know that it's been a great challenge for you, but it's been awesome to witness. So I'd like to ask the crew,
Yep.
our listeners and readers, well, hopefully you read our blog. P.S. The Includer blog was awesome. Well done.
Cindy.
Yes.
Yes,
That was
so
really,
good.
really good. I sent her an email. I was like, all of them have been so
They've been
good.
so great.
So good. I would encourage you to let us know, have you made a resolution? And it's okay if you're one of those January 12th people. Have you made a resolution? What have you used to stick with it?
Yeah.
What have you used to obtain a goal or attain a goal? And what strengths did you spot for yourself? And then also, as you heard us today, this is pretty personal and
Yeah.
deep. What strengths did you see from us? If there are some that we didn't spot or combinations, we'd love to hear that from you.
Thanks, everybody.